Ladies and gentlemen, our boy Hakeem Jeffries, Walmart Obama, Temu Obama, Great Value Obama gets nuked by CNBC over the Democrats shutting down the government. Make sure you watch till the end because this is less of an interview and more of an embarrassing 15-minute consistent scolding by the entire CNBC panel. They humiliate Hakeem, they interrupt him and fact-check his lies, they force him into these stuttery word salad answers, and it gets so bad that the entire panel starts to get annoyed. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You guys are going to love this one, but let's start with this first clip showing that the hosts did not come to play with Hakeem Jeffries today.
Senator, but we're talking about a continuing resolution to keep the government open and then going into the normal appropriations process. I mean, there was an election, and the Republicans were put in a position where they were able to pass the big, beautiful bill, or you call it the big, ugly bill, to then say, we don't like any of that, so we're going to shut down the government until you take back all the things that you duly passed through legislation. If Republicans had tried to do that to the Inflation Reduction Act or the any of the acts that Biden and that administration have passed, if they said, we're going to shut down the government because we don't like any of those things you did, we're going to not pay our military, we're going to, not allow the government to reopen until you do what we want. After an election where the American people put Democrats in power, you'd be going crazy. You'd be going crazy about using a shutdown of the government with a continuing resolution to get what you want just because you don't like what the Republicans did. It's not how it works. It's bad. It's bad precedent, and it's just clear. And you're talking about the House. You've already passed this. The Senate is who we're talking about, and they have a bill which will reopen the government right now with 5 more Democrats.
And that's what I meant when I said this is less of an interview and more just Hakeem sitting through a consistent scolding. Because where was the question? He just grilled Walmart Obama and let him know that he was a political terrorist. The Democrats seem to not be in favor of democratic elections whenever they don't go their way. The American people voted a certain way and for a certain legislative agenda to be passed on their behalf. And despite that being our process where the majority party gets to govern, the Democrats have decided to hold the entire government hostage until every element of the big, beautiful bill is repealed. It says a lot that despite all of the crappy legislation that Joe Biden passed into law, the Republicans had respect for the norms and etiquette of democratic government and didn't engage in political terrorism to get what they want. But you know the last time a government shutdown did happen? Trump's first term. This is just who the Democrats are. They have no respect for the norms. They have no respect for democratic elections. That's why they anointed Kamala Harris without a single Democratic vote. And they can't accept the fact that they don't get every single thing that they want every single time. And now they're willing to let millions of federal workers go without pay just to prove to their radical base that they're willing to fight and oppose Donald Trump by any means necessary. And they don't lose their job to a bunch of AOC revolutionaries. But let's get back into the interview because the destruction of Hakeem Jeffries is only beginning.
But Leader Jeffries, I mean, we know that there are, varying opinions on both sides of the aisle, sharply differing opinions on how to do everything. And you've just outlined a lot of things that Democrats, a lot of problems they have with Republicans. Republicans have a laundry list of things that happened during the Biden administration that they feel the same way about. And I guarantee if they had shut down the government and said, we want a bipartisan talk on doing all this, but what Republicans want, Democrats, their hair would have been on fire. Democrats would have said that's not the way to do it. You can't do it through a government shutdown. And now you're employing that same tactic on what I'm sure you feel are very important issues. But it just looks like, politics as usual to a lot of people.
That's the problem with Democrats. They're so dramatic. They're so self-righteous. They believe everything they stand for is existentially important. They have this sanctimonious attitude where everything they believe in isn't a mere policy debate. It's a life or death issue. They think they're holier than thou, therefore their concerns warrant being addressed immediately and agreed to in totality. The problems they want addressed with healthcare can't be negotiated and hashed out in the period of a week or two, and yet they're shutting down the government until their demands are met. That's because they have no interest in good faith debate or bipartisanship. They want their laundry list of demands to be met via arm twisting, but somehow still don't realize that Donald Trump isn't going to be bullied into giving them $1 trillion for free health care for illegals. They're delusional, and this is a stunt. They're willing to halt functions of the entire federal government, force millions of workers to go without pay. Also, their radical base don't vote them out of office. But let's watch this next clip where Hakeem tries to explain how the shutdown is the Republicans' fault, and a different host on the panel fires some shots at him.
What is bad precedent is the Republican refusal to engage in bipartisan negotiations. What is bad precedent is the Republicans embarking on a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of this Congress. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Joe, you're exactly right. So if the government shuts down, they've made the decision to shut the government down. And they can reopen it right now if they chose to, with a rule change in the Senate. But I just explained it. The reality is they want to keep the government closed. Cruelty from the very beginning of this administration has been the point. And the responsible thing to do is to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan path forward to address a very real healthcare crisis that's upon us right now. Open enrollment starts on November 1st.
Can you do those negotiations while the government is reopened? I think that's the offer that's been on the table.
That's the whole point that he and the rest of the Democrats continue to ignore. You're refusing to fund the government for 7 weeks while you deal with all of these negotiations. That's because they're not looking for negotiations. They're looking for Republicans to arbitrarily sign on to a plan to re-implement their radical woke agenda. And he mentioned that Republicans could use the nuclear option, break precedent, and just push this funding through anyway, but the Republicans actually have respect for the norms and aren't trying to erode all of our procedures like the Democrats would. Basically, the Senate Majority Leader, if he wanted to, could overrule Senate precedent that requires 60 votes to pass legislation. But that's traditionally something both parties withhold from doing because it will be used against them when the opposite party takes power. And if Donald Trump was the supposed dictator that the Democrats claim he is, why wouldn't he just instruct the Senate Majority Leader to do that and he could pass all the laws he wants? Once again, Donald Trump proving he's the worst fascist of all time. If Donald Trump was truly a dictator, he wouldn't be worried about the Democrats breaking that precedent when they get back into power, because they would never be getting back into power. And Democrats have already threatened to use the nuclear option to do things like pack the Supreme Court, to give Puerto Rico and DC statehood, cementing a Democrat majority. All kinds of insane, undemocratic things to tip the balance of power in their favor. But this is where the lady on the CNBC panel starts to lose her patience with Hakeem Jeffries and gives him a piece of her mind.
Our view is, what Johnson said, is that healthcare is an irrelevant extraneous issue. No, it's not an extraneous issue, it's a central issue. And we need to deal with it right now. And we're willing to sit down and have that conversation. We want to reopen the government.
But you're not going to fix this. That's a negotiation that is going to take a very long time. Employees, including the military, are not going to get paid on October 15th. Can you have these negotiations?
And that's an issue that we believe should. And that's an issue that we believe should be dealt with respect to our troops in a bipartisan way, in a manner that it has been dealt with in the past in previous shutdowns,
in the past, you've had appropriations
in
bills
October
that had already
of
been
2013.
For the right.
I'm talking about in October of 2013, where as a standalone issue, the military pay for our families and men and women in uniform was dealt with. That's what I'm making reference to. So who should get paid besides the military? You think the TSA agents should get paid? Where does the line stop for who gets paid and who doesn't? The law requires everyone to be paid, and unfortunately, Donald Trump has once again suggested that no one is going to get paid.
Run the clip back and look at her face. She is completely disgusted with him. She thinks he is a scumbag. Instead of just reopening the government so everybody can get paid, he instead wants to make things 10 times more complicated and pass standalone legislation that pays the military and every other federal employee separately. These are unserious people, and their authoritarian tactics are so obvious. That's why no one's falling for the lie that this is a Republican shutdown. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. We all know it's the Democrats obstructing, and not even in a good faith way. They are demanding things like more free taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries, more free taxpayer health care for illegal aliens, things that they know Donald Trump is not going to agree to. This is just a charade, a spectacle, because they're a bunch of theater kids. They're a bunch of ivory tower, corrupt, self-serving politicians who believe their interests supersede the interests of the American people. They didn't vote for you, bro. Get over it. You claim to be the party fighting to preserve democracy, but now you're throwing a fit and taking your ball home because democracy didn't go in your favor. And this is when the hosts finally get exhausted with him and just tell him to his face, "Sir, people have to get paid in 5 days, and we're not going to fix the entire healthcare system before then."
But their premiums may actually triple to $24,000 a year, unable to afford that. That's what we're talking about. And this is a very real thing that's happening right now.
We're not going to fix Obamacare or the AC. There's a lot of issues that are not just the expiration of the subsidies that are causing a lot of these problems. And you're not going to be able to fix it and negotiate it between now and reopening the government. You got to reopen the government first and then get.
We made very clear at the beginning of September that we will find a bipartisan path forward to keep the government open and enact a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people. What we also said is we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people.
But it was already supported the
This wasn't an 11th hour position. It was a position that we articulated early on, and unfortunately, Republicans chose a my way or the highway approach that they
Democrats
are continuing
voted for
right now in the Senate.
Initially. This is the same funding that was already passed by both houses.
I explained that Democrats in the House strongly opposed this spending bill in March because it hurt the American people.
Right. The American people voted for the Republican Party, and the Republican Party passed a piece of legislation that the American people wanted. But because it wasn't what the Democrats wanted, they feel justified to shut down the entire federal government. It's like a kid who throws a tantrum in the middle of the store because his parent won't buy him a toy. Every self-respecting parent would not buy their kid that toy to shut them up because they know it only encourages and solidifies that kind of behavior. And they expect Donald Trump, of all people, to give in to their ludicrous demands. Read the room. Check the temperature of the political climate. In the words of Donald Trump himself, you do not have the cards. It's like Hakeem and the rest of the Democrats assume everyone else in the world is just another radical Trump-deranged lunatic like themselves, and unanimously support the Democrats' childish and undemocratic obstruction and see everything as an existential life or death issue. The American people expect both sides to debate, to argue, to negotiate. But they expect that the government is open while they're doing this. They don't want massive delays at the airport. They don't want massive delays when they call their Social Security office. But that's what the Democrats are giving them, all to provide free health care for illegal aliens, something the American people are overwhelmingly against. But the last clip I'm going to show you is them calling out Hakeem for the Democrats openly admitting that they're merely playing politics here, because Chuck Schumer said, every day the government stays closed, it's better for us. Take a look.
There's clearly a game of chicken going on here, and I think it was expressed in many ways by Senator Schumer in terms of how strategically there is a view among Democrats that the longer you can hold out, perhaps the better chance you have either to get what you want or to push the Republicans into some kind of other place. And my question to you is how you think about that, given the trade-off, of course, which is all of the government workers which are currently being furloughed and not being paid.
I think that Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats have taken a strong and principled position for all of the right reasons in the face of this Republican health care crisis. Remember, this is something that has been ongoing from the very beginning of this Congress. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history, forcing, we believe, 14 million people off of health care coverage.
The normal way this would be handled is the Democrats would make clear publicly that they oppose the contents in the big, beautiful bill. They would tell people all of the scary, devastating things that are going to occur, and they would campaign and make their case to the American people why they should vote Democrat in 2026 and take the country in a different direction. That is how this process works and has always worked. But Democrats, true to their nature, have no respect for the democratic process. They don't respect our political structure that sometimes you're in the minority, sometimes you're in the majority, and instead elected to hold the government hostage as the minority party until they get what they want, like a bunch of dictators. And they're taking this discombobulated, aggressive approach because they're absolutely horrible at political strategy. The lesser of two evils for the Democrats would have clearly been to leave the government open, because now Donald Trump has unilateral authority to determine what stays open, who gets fired, and these changes are permanent. They can't even weaponize their corrupt federal judges to block or overturn these changes. It truly highlights that the only members left in the Democrat Party are wildly left progressive Marxist militants, and they have to appeal to their radical bloodlust no matter how idiotic or dangerous. If these radicals were a minority of the party and the Democrat Party was still majority reasonable, common sense people, they would have never considered taking this route because it looks bad to anybody with a brain and two eyes. But as Hakeem Jeffries, Walmart Obama, always finds out in these interviews, when he talks to anybody who isn't as Trump deranged as him, they don't buy what he's selling. They're not eating his slop, and they call out his absurdity and give him a vicious tongue lashing every single time. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.